Many of you will find yourselves relating to this story in one way or another. These things happen around us every day, yet we choose to turn a blind eye to them, like a pigeon shutting its eyes in the face of danger. We refuse to acknowledge the signs, pretending they don't exist. I was one of those men, blinded by my emotions, unable to distinguish between right and wrong. Caught in the heat of the moment, I made choices that would haunt me for the rest of my life. This story is for men like me, men who let their emotions overpower their judgment and end up making choices they regret forever. Listen to this tale till the end, and don't forget to share your thoughts. Tossing and turning in bed, I found no relief. My youthful desires had grown into an unbearable torment. A burning impatience consumed me. I wanted my fiancée, Anam, to be mine as soon as possible. I had pleaded with my mother countless times to arrange our wedding, but her response remained unchanged. "Just wait 6 more months," she would say. "Let Anam finish her exams, and then we will arrange the wedding." But how could I explain to my mother that every single night felt like an eternity to me? Each passing moment stretched like a mountain, suffocating me in my own desires. Whenever I talked to Anam over the phone, my emotions would spiral out of control. I could feel my boundaries dissolving with every conversation, and she, sensing it, would abruptly end the call. Frustration piled up inside me. Tonight, I had not even called her, fearing I would once again lose myself in words I shouldn't say. Time dragged on, the silence in my room becoming unbearable, and eventually, my restless heart pushed me to do something reckless. I needed to see Anam, just a glimpse. It had been too long since I last laid eyes on her. In our conservative society, an engaged couple meeting freely was frowned upon. Her house was not too far, just a few streets away. Without a second thought, I slipped out of my room at around 1 in the morning, careful not to wake anyone. The night was eerily silent, with only the distant sound of a stray dog barking in the alleys. The excitement mixed with nervousness in my chest, but my need to see her face outweighed all my fears. Anam's room was on the upper floor, and the staircase leading to it was in their courtyard. I had been to her house several times and knew my way around. Scaling their boundary wall wasn't difficult for me. I had done it before, though never this late at night. I crept in like a shadow, climbing the stairs slowly, my heart pounding wildly in my chest. As I reached her door, I noticed the light was still on. A faint smile crossed my lips. She was awake, likely studying for her upcoming exams. The thought made me even more eager. Soon those exams would be over, and we would finally be together. I imagined telling her how much I longed for her, how these restless nights consumed me with anticipation. Slowly, I placed my hand on the doorknob, expecting it to be locked. To my surprise, it wasn't. The door creaked slightly as it opened, and I peered inside, expecting to see Anam sitting with her books. But what I saw instead drained the blood from my veins. Anam wasn't alone. She was in the room with someone, her brother. But what I saw them doing on the bed made my breath catch in my throat, my entire body freezing in place. A scream threatened to escape my lips, but I swallowed it down, unable to process the sight in front of me. They were not in a state any brother and sister should be in. What I witnessed shattered the reality I had known. My knees felt weak. My mind raced to find an explanation, a reason, anything that could justify what I was seeing. But deep down, I knew there was no justification. The world I had built around my love for Anam crumbled in an instant, and rage consumed me. Without thinking, I stormed into the room. Anam gasped in horror when she saw me, her face turning pale. But I was beyond reason. Blinded by fury, disgust, and betrayal, I lashed out. I could hear her pleading, her screams echoing through the room, but they meant nothing to me anymore. Her brother, however, didn't react the way I expected. He sat on the bed, watching the scene unfold with a twisted smile, as if he enjoyed seeing me in torment. That sinister smile fueled my rage even further. My thoughts were chaotic, my heart burning with pain and anger. I couldn't believe the woman I had loved, the one I had dreamed of spending my life with, could betray me like this, with her own brother. I was lost in a whirlwind of emotions, and I didn't know what I was doing anymore. In that moment, I lost all sense of myself. As I pushed Anam onto the bed once more, Her desperate cries filled the air. And just then, her mother rushed into the room, alerted by the commotion. But instead of stopping, I found myself doing something even more unforgivable. My mother had arranged my engagement to Anum, the daughter of her close friend. Their friendship went back years, and her visits to our house were frequent. Naturally, I had seen Anum many times before. She was breathtakingly beautiful, so much so that no man in his right mind would refuse such a proposal. Especially a man like me, ordinary in looks and personality, had no reason to say no to a girl like her. When my mother first brought up the idea of our engagement, I had no objections whatsoever. Anum's mother accepted the proposal without hesitation. Her husband had passed away years ago, leaving her with 2 children, Anum and her younger brother. She was deeply concerned about her daughter's future, wanting to see her settled in a good home as soon as possible. The son, she believed, could secure his future on his own, but Anum needed a stable household. My mother, being a close friend, was well aware of their situation and wanted to help without imposing any financial burden on them. Since she had seen me grow up, Anum's mother had no reason to refuse the proposal. Our engagement was finalized with great enthusiasm. Being my mother's only son, she wanted the engagement to be celebrated lavishly. She spared no expense, ensuring everything was grand and memorable. Since we were well off, the entire financial burden was shouldered by my mother, making sure Anum's widowed mother didn't have to worry about the costs. That evening, our house buzzed with laughter, lights, and celebration. But I had something else on my mind, getting closer to Anum. That very night, with a mix of cunning and excitement, I managed to get Anum's phone number. I was a 24-year-old young man, eager and restless. My friends had advised me to start talking to her, to understand her likes and dislikes, and to build some understanding before our marriage. Their advice made perfect sense to me. After all, how could we have a successful marriage without knowing each other better? So without wasting any time, I dialed her number. It was almost 3 a.m. when, after several missed calls and messages, she finally answered. Her voice was soft, hesitant. As soon as I heard her, I couldn't hold back. I openly expressed my emotions, telling her how much I looked forward to our life together, how her beauty captivated me, and how I couldn't wait for the day she would be mine. But to my surprise, she remained silent. Every word I spoke was met with an unsettling stillness from her side. Confused and a little frustrated, I finally asked if she was happy with this engagement. After a brief pause, she whispered, "This engagement happened with my consent." Those words were all I needed to hear. Relief flooded through me, and I felt like the luckiest man alive. Perhaps, I thought, she was just shy, like many girls. Maybe she wasn't the talkative type. That thought made me even more eager to continue our conversation. I kept talking, filling the silence between us, asking her about her dreams, her plans, her thoughts on our future together. Slowly, I pushed the conversation toward more personal topics that made her uncomfortable. Her voice faltered, and eventually, with a nervous laugh, she told me, "Let's talk tomorrow," and abruptly ended the call. Her shy demeanor only added to her charm in my eyes. I was captivated by her innocence and eagerly waited for the next night to arrive. My mind raced with thoughts of our future, of what lay ahead for us. The following night, I called her again, this time right at 2 a.m. When she picked up, her tone was different, distracted, almost hurried. "I'm busy right now. Can we talk later?" she said. I frowned. Busy? At this hour? Who could she possibly be with so late at night? Then, before I could ask anything further, I heard a faint male voice in the background. Her brother. Panic surged through me, and I quickly ended the call. Anum had already told me on the first night that her family was quite strict about such things. Her brother in particular was very protective of her. If he ever found out she was talking to me at such hours, he would surely take her phone away. That thought made me uneasy, but I tried to brush it off. Maybe she was helping him with something harmless. Yet my mind refused to rest. Why was her brother in her room at this hour? What could they possibly be doing? I couldn't shake off the feeling that something wasn't quite right. At around 4 a.m., my phone rang. It was Anum. Her voice was different this time, tired, breathless, as if she had just run a marathon. "I just wanted to say goodbye properly," she said. "You hung up so suddenly." I asked her where she had been for the past 2 hours. There was a long silence, and then she hesitantly replied, "My brother needed help with his assignment. I was helping him." Her explanation seemed innocent enough, and I convinced myself there was nothing to worry about. We continued talking for a while, my heart racing as I expressed my feelings to her again. But she remained cautious, ending the conversation abruptly once more with a soft goodbye before hanging up. That night, an unsettling feeling settled in my chest. I tried to convince myself that I was just overthinking things, that she was simply being careful. But the strange exhaustion in her voice, the way she had struggled to speak, and the fact that her brother had been in her room so late, all of it gnawed at me. My love for Anam was growing stronger each day, but so was the unease within me. Something wasn't right, and I knew I had to find out what it was. My mind, despite my best efforts, couldn't stop imagining the worst, and so it became a routine. Every night I would call Anam, but the moment our conversation veered towards anything remotely intimate, she would hastily end the call. Sometimes she would say that her brother needed her help with something, promising to call me later. It seemed like her brother always found an excuse to be around her at night, and this started to irk me deeply. My patience was wearing thin, and I found myself constantly pleading with my mother to arrange the wedding as soon as possible. "Please, Mother, I can't wait any longer," I would say, my frustration evident. But my mother remained firm. "Not until Anum finishes her studies," she would reply. I couldn't argue with her logic. Anum's mother wasn't in the best financial position, and my mother wanted to give her some time to prepare. Even though I was taking care of most of the wedding expenses, my mother insisted on allowing Anum's family to contribute something of their own. Months passed, and our engagement dragged on. The phone conversations no longer satisfied me. In fact, they only fueled my growing impatience. My friends, seeing my frustration, suggested something that lit a spark in me. "Why don't you meet her after college?" they said. "Take her out somewhere, maybe to a nice hotel, and spend some time together. Drop her back home later. No one will know." The idea excited me. It was something I hadn't thought of before, and it made perfect sense. Anum went to college daily, and it wouldn't be too hard to meet her privately. The very next day, I waited outside her college at closing time, my heart pounding in anticipation. I spotted her in the crowd and signaled for her to come over. She froze for a moment, her face paling with nervousness. After hesitating, she walked towards me, her eyes darting around anxiously. "What are you doing here?" she whispered, panic in her voice. "Go away! If my brother finds out, it will be a disaster. He will break off our engagement." I couldn't help but chuckle at her fear. "Relax," I said confidently. "Just get in the car. Your brother will never know." Despite her protests, I gently but firmly guided her into the car and drove to a quiet, upscale hotel. She sat in the passenger seat, visibly tense, her hands trembling slightly. Throughout the ride, she kept glancing out of the window, as if expecting her brother to appear out of nowhere and catch her. In the hotel lobby, I noticed how pale her face had become. She looked around nervously, whispering, "If my brother finds out, he'll kill me." I tried to calm her down, holding her hand reassuringly. "Anum, we're engaged. We're going to be married soon. Why are you so scared? Your brother isn't here, and he doesn't need to know." I ordered some food, but she didn't touch a single bite. She sat across from me, her hands tightly clasped in her lap, her eyes wide with fear. I reached out and held her trembling hands firmly. "You're so beautiful," I whispered, gazing into her anxious eyes. "I can't wait for the day you become mine completely." She blushed, her face turning crimson, but there was still a shadow of fear lingering in her expression. My desire for her grew with every passing second. I wanted to pull her into my arms, to make her mine right there and then. But I knew I had to wait. This moment wasn't enough. I wanted more, so much more. When I saw her discomfort intensify, I decided it was time to leave. I drove her back near her home, ensuring no one saw us together. Before she got out of the car, I reassured her again. "See, Nothing happened. You were worried for no reason. But even later that night, when I called her, she was still nervous. Please, she begged, don't ever come to my college again. You scared me to death today. I can't meet you like this anymore. Her words stung, but I agreed. Fine, I won't come again, I said, though deep inside I wasn't ready to give up. Our conversations continued, but something inside me was changing. As the seasons shifted and the cold winter nights crept in, my restlessness grew stronger. Loneliness gnawed at me, making it harder to control my emotions. It was one such freezing night when the loneliness became unbearable. No matter how much I tried, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned in bed, but the thought of Anam filled my mind completely. I longed to see her, to be with her, even for a brief moment. The idea took root in my mind, and soon I found myself acting on impulse. Without a second thought, I threw on my warm jacket and silently slipped out of the house. My parents were asleep in their room, unaware of my departure. The streets were eerily quiet, the chill in the air biting against my skin. As I walked towards her house, an unusual sense of excitement coursed through me. Anam's house wasn't far, and I knew every route, every shortcut. Reaching her street, I glanced around cautiously. The darkness gave me cover, and within moments I scaled the boundary wall of her house as I had done before. I made my way to the staircase leading to her room, my footsteps light and calculated. As I reached the door, a familiar anticipation gripped me. Tonight I needed to see her face, to feel her presence. But as I pushed the door open silently, my heart stopped at what I saw inside. Anam was sitting on her bed, but she wasn't alone. I climbed over the small wall of Anam's house and quietly made my way up the stairs leading to her room. The night was silent, and my heart pounded wildly in my chest. Reaching her door, I turned the knob ever so gently, careful not to make a sound. As the door creaked open, the sight before me froze me in place, sending shivers down my spine. Anam was not alone. She was sitting on the bed with her brother, and what I witnessed next made my blood run cold. He was touching her in ways no brother should, his hands lingering on parts of her body that made my stomach churn with disgust. Anam, however, just sat there, silent and motionless, while he leaned in closer, planting kisses on her face. My mind refused to believe what my eyes were seeing. How could a brother do such unspeakable things to his own sister? But more than him, my rage was directed at Anam. The girl I had thought to be innocent, pure, and virtuous, was now sitting before me, silently allowing this to happen. The fury boiling inside me exploded in an instant. I stormed into the room, and the moment Anam saw me, she turned pale, terror flashing across her face. You! My voice trembled with rage. Without thinking, without a second's hesitation, my hand flew across her face with a resounding slap. Her delicate frame staggered, but my anger was beyond control. Again and again I struck her, my frustration pouring out with every hit. She fell to the floor, blood trickling from her lips. But even then, I couldn't stop. I had loved her, trusted her, and now this betrayal, this unforgivable act, was staring me right in the face. Anam's brother sat on the bed, watching the scene unfold with an eerie calmness. He made no effort to intervene, no attempt to protect his sister. Instead, he smirked, as if enjoying the chaos I had unleashed upon Anam. That smug look only fueled my anger further, but strangely, I directed it all at her. Her cries echoed through the room, her sobs tearing through the heavy air. Yet it did nothing to pacify the storm raging inside me. I grabbed her by the arm, pulling her up from the cold floor and throwing her onto the bed. I raised my hand once more, ready to strike again, but before I could, the door burst open. Anam's mother stood there, her eyes wide in shock, taking in the horrifying scene before her. "What is going on here?" she demanded, her voice trembling. Breathing heavily, I turned to her, my rage finding a new target. "What kind of mother are you?" I spat. "This is your upbringing? This is what your daughter does in the middle of the night with her own brother?" Tears welled in her eyes as she looked at Anam, her gaze filled with heartbreak. "Please, stop," she whispered, stepping closer. I shook my head, laughing bitterly. I'm glad I saw this with my own eyes. Otherwise, you would have sent this characterless girl to my house and I would have lived my entire life believing she was pure and innocent. My hands clenched into fists, the anger still burning in my chest. I should do the same to you, to teach you what kind of mother raises a girl like this, I roared, stepping toward her. But what happened next left me speechless. Anum's mother fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. If you want to hurt someone, hurt my son, she pleaded, her voice cracking with pain. Anum is innocent. She is not at fault. Punish my son instead. Take his life if you want, but don't harm my daughter. I froze, my mind struggling to process her words. Anum's mother looked at me with tear-filled eyes, and what she said next shattered my world. The truth is, she whispered, her voice barely audible, my son, he's not like other men. He's not normal. He has troubled Anum for years, and she has been too scared to tell anyone. My eyes darted to Anum, who was now trembling on the bed, tears streaming down her blood-streaked face. Her shoulders shook violently, and for the first time she lifted her eyes to meet mine. There was no defiance, no guilt, only deep, overwhelming pain and helplessness. A crushing weight settled over me. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. I had misunderstood everything. I had let my anger blind me, allowed my insecurities to consume me, and in doing so, I had wronged the one person I claimed to love. Guilt gripped me. I fell to my knees beside Anum, my hands shaking. Forgive me, please, I whispered. My voice choked with regret. I was wrong. I didn't know. I didn't understand. She said nothing, only weeping softly. Her mother placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, offering the solace I had so cruelly stripped away. I turned to Anum's mother, my voice firm despite the shame I felt. Tomorrow, I said, swallowing the lump in my throat, I want to marry Anum. I don't want to wait any longer. Her mother's eyes widened in surprise. After everything you saw tonight, you still want to marry her? She asked, disbelief evident in her tone. I nodded. Yes, none of this is her fault. I know that now. I won't let her suffer anymore. I'll protect her, always. Anum's mother wiped her tears, hope flickering in her eyes. Anum, however, remained silent. She didn't look at me, didn't acknowledge my words, but I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. The years of silent suffering that had drained her spirit. That night, as I walked away from her house, I knew things would never be the same. I had come seeking love, but I had found a harsh reality instead. Anum's pain, her silence, and my own mistakes haunted me. But one thing was clear in my heart. I wouldn't let her endure this pain alone anymore. I would fight for her, protect her, and love her. Not out of pity, but because she deserved happiness. As the cold night wind blew against my face, I vowed to make things right, no matter what it took. Hearing my words, Anum stood frozen in shock, unable to process the turn of events. Meanwhile, her mother, driven by fury and pain, lashed out at her son, beating him mercilessly before finally throwing him out of the house. I watched it all in silence, my mind reeling from the overwhelming weight of the truth I had just uncovered. Without uttering another word, I left their house under the cover of darkness, my steps heavy and my thoughts clouded with regret and sorrow. The next morning, Anum's mother called my mother, her voice trembling with desperation. I am not well, she said, and I want to send Anum to your house today itself. My mother, understanding the gravity of the situation, agreed without hesitation. That very evening, in a simple yet emotional ceremony, Anum and I were married, and she was sent off to my house. My mother, always mindful of the traditions, assured everyone that a grand reception would be held once Anum's exams were over. No one objected to this arrangement. When Anum entered my room as my wife, she looked fragile and delicate, her face still bearing the bruises from the previous night's events. I pulled her close, my heart heavy with guilt. Tears welled up in my eyes as I whispered, "Forgive me, Anum. I made a terrible mistake." She clung to me tightly, her sobs shaking her entire frame. Between her tears, she muttered, "I'm sorry too. I should have told you the truth earlier. I should have trusted you." I cupped her face gently and wiped away her tears. "It's all in the past now," I whispered. "What matters is that you're here with me, and nothing will ever harm you again." As I held her, pouring my love into every touch, I realized how much she meant to me. Despite everything, my love for her had only grown deeper. I wanted to shield her from the world, to erase every painful memory she had endured. If Anum's mother hadn't revealed the truth to me, I might have walked away in anger and lost the most precious person in my life. That thought haunted me. I owed her mother everything. Later that night, as Anum lay beside me, staring at the ceiling, she finally revealed the full story, one that shattered my heart into pieces. "I am not my mother's real daughter," she confessed in a shaky voice. "She adopted me after my own mother, her sister, passed away." I looked at her in disbelief, absorbing every word. "She never told anyone," Anum continued, "because she didn't want me to feel like an outsider. She raised me as her own, and I thought of her as my real mother. But her son, Imran, found out the truth." I clenched my fists. "And that's when it all started, didn't it?" She nodded, fresh tears streaming down her face. "He began treating me differently. He would tell my mother to throw me out, saying I had no place in our house. He hated me, resented me. And then one day he realized he had power over me." Her voice broke as she recalled the horrors she had endured. "He started sneaking into my room at night, whispering threats, reminding me that I didn't belong. He would terrify me, and when I grew older, he became more dangerous. He started touching me, and I couldn't stop him." A shiver ran down my spine. "Why didn't you tell anyone, Anami?" I asked, my voice thick with emotion. She sighed, looking away. "Because my mother was afraid of the shame it would bring. If people found out that she was raising a girl who wasn't her real daughter alongside her son, they would have humiliated her. She thought marrying me off quickly would end everything." I buried my face in my hands, realizing how deep the pain ran. "And then he found out about us, about our calls." Anum nodded. "Yes, he threatened to tell you, to twist the truth and ruin everything between us." I was scared. Scared of losing you. Scared of what he might do. So I gave in to his threats. Her voice broke completely as she whispered, "I let him take what he wanted, just to keep you from leaving me." I felt as though the floor had been ripped from beneath me. The girl I had dreamed of spending my life with had been trapped in a nightmare, forced to endure unspeakable pain to protect our relationship. "Anum," I whispered, holding her hand tightly. "You should have trusted me." "I couldn't," she sobbed. I thought you'd never understand. I thought you'd walk away, and I'd be left alone. Again." I pulled her into my arms, holding her like I never wanted to let go. "You're not alone anymore," I promised, my voice shaking. "I will protect you. No one will ever hurt you again." In that moment, I realized the depth of my love for her. It wasn't just desire or infatuation. It was something far more profound. I wanted to heal her wounds, to give her the peace she had been denied for so long. As the night stretched on, we lay together in silence, our hearts beating in unison. I knew that our journey wouldn't be easy. The scars of her past wouldn't fade overnight, and trust would take time to rebuild. But I was willing to fight for her, to stand by her through every battle. The next morning, when my mother came to check on us, she found Ainum in the kitchen, preparing breakfast with a shy smile. For the first time in a long while, she looked at peace. "She'll be fine," I told my mother quietly. "With time and love, she'll be fine." And so our life together began, not without challenges, but with a promise that I would never let her face them alone again. Her brother was pouring the intensity of his twisted emotions onto her, and watching it unfold before my eyes had shattered every ounce of sanity I possessed. In that moment, blinded by rage and betrayal, I had assumed the worst of Anum. I had thought of her as shameless, as someone who had betrayed me, and without thinking twice, I had unleashed my fury upon her. I had struck her, punished her, when in reality, she was the victim, not the culprit. The real villain was her brother, the one who had shattered the sanctity of their relationship and turned it into something grotesque. If Anum's mother hadn't revealed the truth to me that night, I might have walked away, leaving her to suffer alone in the torment she had endured for years. I might have carried the burden of a terrible misunderstanding for the rest of my life, but fate had intervened, and I had learned the truth just in time. And with that truth, I made a decision that would define the rest of my life. I vowed that Anum would never have to endure humiliation again. She had already suffered enough, trapped in a nightmare of fear and despair, and yet she had done nothing wrong. Her innocence had been tainted by the actions of those who should have protected her, and I was determined to change that. I brought her into my home, into my life, and I made her my honor, my pride. As for her brother, justice had already been served. Anum's mother, in her anguish and fury, had beaten him and thrown him out of the house. He was no longer a part of her life, nor ours. He had destroyed the sanctity of a brother-sister relationship, and in doing so, he had lost everything: his mother's love, his sister's trust, and any shred of dignity he might have once possessed. If he had chosen to live as a true brother, Anum would have respected him, and their family could have remained intact. But now he was nothing more than a disgrace, a shadow of what could have been. Today, Anum and I are living a peaceful and fulfilling life together. She has proven to be a loyal, loving wife, someone I could trust with my whole heart. She has filled my life with warmth and kindness, and not once have I regretted my decision to marry her. In fact, I thank fate every day for bringing her into my life. Anum's love is so pure, so all-encompassing, that I can't even imagine another woman in my life. Her affection has healed my heart in ways I never thought possible, and in return, I have done everything in my power to help her move beyond her painful past. We never speak of those dark days anymore. We have left them behind, locked away in a place where they no longer haunt us. Sometimes late at night, when I see Anum smiling peacefully in her sleep, I wonder, did I make the right choice? Would others have done the same in my place? Or would they have walked away, letting their pride dictate their actions? Society often pushes women like Anum into the shadows, labeling them without understanding their struggles. How many girls suffer in silence, too afraid to speak out, too afraid to seek help? What do you think? Did I make the right decision by choosing love over judgment? Is our society always so unforgiving towards girls like Anum? And what about men like Imran? Do they ever think, even for a moment, about the lives they ruin? Do they feel guilt? Or do they simply move on, looking for their next victim? These questions haunt me, even as I hold Anum close and promise her a future filled with nothing but happiness. But no matter what, I know one thing for sure. I will never let Anum feel unloved or unprotected again.